We're sitting at an interesting time in humanity, and many of you may be really aware of what's going on. Some of you may not. Many of us are caught up in our own patterns and programs, but for some people, they're not even aware that they have been programmed or patterned within them. Maybe they've heard limiting beliefs, and maybe that's you. Or maybe you're really um, the right word's not advanced, but you have a clear awareness. Yeah, this is all about awareness. And one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was this journey of coming back home to ourselves, this marriage, so to speak. And there are so many guides and guidances that have been given to us through art, through history, um, through the Bible, through other texts. We can look at this in nature. And one of the things that's really interesting is that it all comes back to a feeling state. And in my own journey, I realized like the feeling state, I understood that like my feelings, my emotions. But as our bodies guide us more and more, we come into a place of understanding that feeling is it's deeper. It's a frequency. You feel it in your body. And I can feel when I'm speaking truth, or I can feel when there's shame, or I can feel when maybe it's not fully aligned, or my body isn't wanting to talk and move. And so, what I'm finding with a lot of folks that I work with is that we come from a very intellectual standpoint. Many of the folks, but like me, I mean, I have a big ego, and that was formed, and not in a bad way. It was formed out of being raised in a cult, out of being raised in a really, really controlled environment, a removal of the sense of self, feeling like on the outside, um, feeling wrong, unworthy, that the only way to succeed was to essentially meet the expectations of the cult that I was raised in, or in corporate culture, or in the queer culture, or in the greater culture, the American culture. And what happens as we begin on our journey, from my perspective, is that there's no healing. We're going to move from this stage of thinking that we need to heal to remembering that we're whole, but that we are revealing ourselves to ourselves. And I've been deep in my fucking journey and feeling and moving forward and understanding who I am. What are the patterns and programs? How do they show up in my life? Can I trust life? Because being in the present moment and now really takes coming to a place of being able to be present, to stay focused, to feel, and to trust. Trust that's with what is within. And an experience I'll share with you is this realization for me is that I was feeling like I know I have a higher self, a soul. I'm being guided. There is guidance. I can trust life. But it was almost as if I felt my soul like sat over here, so to speak. Like my higher self was like outside of me instead of it was me. And the whole time it has always been my soul. And what this is this marriage. So everything in the external world that we see, so we have marriages where it says the two become one. Well, we have that in examples of a man and woman becoming married. A man and man can get married. This may trigger a lot of folks like, that's not right, but you're going to start to see what the energies are really about, because this kingdom, or everything that's within you, the universe within you, is a mirror out into the world. So we have marriage because it is a representation of what happens inside. A marriage between the masculine and feminine energy, between our left and right hemispheres, between our higher self and our animal. And I want to talk a little bit about the animal today. I think that that's where I feel guided. When we step into this, the fact that we are actually an animal, we are in a being, an animal. that has instincts. We find a primal connection to ourselves. Now, I'm only ever going to continue to speak from my perspective. I may have inklings of what maybe you're feeling because I feel them too, but one of the things that I struggle with is trying to say, hey, here's where you're at, because I actually don't know where you're at and I don't know you, but I can speak about where I've come from and where I've gone to. And one of the big things is this. I'm touching base with the animal part of me, the instinctual part of me, the part that wants to smell itself, this part that is getting more familiar with touching itself. And I'm not talking just sexual touching, like that's not what it is, but it is, it can be part of that. Um, but it is really removing the shame of like my body odor or, maybe that I don't take a shower when I'm camping, right? Like, could just be my own scent. It could be looking at my body in new ways and understanding the different smells, and to come into a place of understanding that the animal knows what it needs. But I've been fighting against it because there's this war within that often happens for many of us between the mind, the brain, or this higher self, or what people may call the ego, all these different things, right? And the animal. The mind is this conceptual, imaginative, this is how I want life to be. And the animal's trying to get us there in its own ways. It's the being. And it's even funny when we talk about animal, because when I say that to folks, they'll be like, oh, offended. That it's like, I'm not an animal. Well, when we touch base with our animal, we're coming back to our truer nature. And that is really taking us into our root chakras. And even below that, the 12th chakra, I believe, in the Kabbalah, it talks about, or Kabbalah, whatever, I can't fucking say it right now, but in the Jewish traditions and the esoteric is the 12th chakra, or the Malkut, which is this connection to nature. And so what I'm finding is that my animal, this instinctual part of me, is wanting to move more with the rhythms of nature. And the rhythms of nature are going to come down to, then I have to look at like, how have systems been put in place? What are my beliefs around my connection to nature? And am I working in harmony with them? Because everything is designed perfectly for all of nature, including me and you. And so, like, one of the big things that I started looking at was our calendaring. Now, being raised in a cult, I never believed in Christmas. Wasn't taught to any of those kind of things, because they actually don't really line up with actually true things. They are holidays and celebrations that had been rebranded, so to speak, by primarily the Roman Catholic Church, to give people a place to celebrate, but to do so under a structure or a system that keeps them in control. So when you really think about it intuitively, does it make sense that we celebrate New Year's in January? Like, is nature in its new year? No. Some people say the winter solstice is the new year, but that's the winter solstice. This is when we're moving into the depths of winter, right? It's the darkest night. Yes, we're moving out onto the other side, but this is a time for real reflection. What do we see happening? We see in nature the slowing down. We see the hibernation. We see the dropping its leaves in the trees. They're letting go of those things that they don't need anymore from the previous season, so that they can blossom into new season. Same for us. We talk about New Year's resolutions, but we do it in such a weird way. And so when I began to look at everything, it was really Constantine, I believe, that changed the calendar to the current Gregorian calendar that we're on, and the 12 months as opposed to 13 months and 28 days. And then there was always one special day. Some celebrated that around what we may know as Passover, Easter. But there's also a lot of traditions that celebrate around June 25th or July 25th, I believe. Yeah, July 25th. Um, and I won't always get all my facts correct, so I want to be clear because I'm just speaking in from what's present with me right now. So, anyways, when we think about our animal and we come into this place of really beginning to want to understand our connection to nature and who we are, we have to again pull back and look at systems that have been set in place to keep us removed from. So, if we move into a 13-month cycle or we come into the new years, then we're going to look at everything coming back into alignment because really I'm going to start celebrating my New Year's in March, spring, when everything is springing forth. That's the new year. It's like everything has been building. I've been gathering the nutrients. I've been resting. I am in this place of wanting to sleep. When it's dark out, it goes early. It's like I want to go to sleep earlier. I'm just not as I don't want to be as busy because our bodies know naturally, like, hey, we're going to be coming into spring, into summer, and we're going to really be moving and active. And it is so counterintuitive for a lot of us that are having to work 9 to 5s and all that stuff. I know that there is so much for people to try to move through to come back into our natural cycles, but we can do it in small ways. And another really interesting thing that came up for me is that in my journey, now I had to take a risk. I had to step out of a corporate life and a lot of what I assumed was comfort and ease to really get to know who I am and to move into places of comfort. So some may say, well, you have this opportunity because you don't have to work 9 to 5. Yeah, but I have had a lot of things pulled away from me, and I have had to um, pare down my life in many ways to come back into more of a natural state. And so I can only speak from my perspective again, but I've had to take a lot of risk and put a lot of things online to come into this place. And part of me feels like there's a part of me that feels like I want to justify that, but there's other part that I now know that we each have to take a risk of something, of doing something strange and weird and odd and different than the crowd if we really want to come into our true nature. So, what I find really interesting right now is that I am fighting against some of nature because I have all these ideas, all of these things that I want to be doing. I really want to move things forward, and I'm really excited, and I've got these great programs and ways that I can help folks. And every time I try to push it, I can't because most of my time my body wants to to rest, or I'm spending a lot of time researching, and that's what we're doing in winter. And I finally realized, well, that's the natural cycle. But where I was getting back to as well is that I found that my natural energetic time when I really like to begin doing work or really ready to kind of show up in live for clients or anything is 10 a.m. And so I was thinking about this because our days don't even make sense. Midnight to midnight? Like 12 to 12? It's really strange to me. But when you really think about it, I think most of it, what we're going to understand is that our day actually starts at 6 a.m. So it's 6 to 6. And that sort of makes sense. And then you're going to see that our masculine energy is more activated during the 6 to 6 or during the day, and our feminine energy more in the night. I don't think I'm going to get into all of that stuff today. I'm just beginning to try to get out. This is a way for me to begin to express my own journey and the things that I have been learning. And so, one of the things you're going to find that I um, am really astutely aware of is that most other teachers or most other folks out there are going to talk directly to you about what you're experiencing. Well, I actually don't know what you're experiencing, and I don't want to pretend like I know, but I can speak from my own perspective and story. And so, although it's counterintuitive, and in some ways it feels like I'm making it about me, I really only ever know how to talk about my own journey and what I've experienced. And I'm experiencing this part of me that wants um, to be more animalistic, more in the wild, more, um, like I've removed a lot of my deodorants and those kind of things, primarily because of all the fucking toxins that are in them. But also this realization that when I have my natural smells, I can become aware of what those smells are to know if my smells are off or if there's maybe something going on, a chemical imbalance with my body. Same, it's really strange. Like this came up recently where, like, when we take a bowel movement or shit, like those parts of ourselves, like we may smell that, and all of us probably, you're probably sitting here, I can't believe he talks about that. I can't believe I'm talking about it. Never would I have ever thought I would talk about it. But for me, I would always feel the shame around my smells, because we're told to be shameful, but it is a natural way for us to know if our body's healthy. Our body knows it's health, if it's healthy or not. And I think it's also one of the ways that, as an animal, instinctually, if we're around other animals that are off or whatever, then we know that maybe they've got some shit going on in them. And that's something that we can take a look at. And we're never taught what our smells maybe mean. We're not taught. It's just that's stinky, or oh, that's bacteria and what have you. Okay, so you're telling me it's bacteria and I've got to put deodorant on so I smell good, but does that mean other parts of my body are not in alignment? And there's probably experts out there that explain all that. I'm not going to get into that. I'm just talking right now. In this moment, I am coming to this place of understanding that my body has been guiding me the whole time. My body has all of this beautiful, beautiful wisdom that it's wanting to show me. It knows how to move and stretch, and it's wanting to work out, or what type of foods, or like I started fasting, and fasting, I did the scientific research. You've got to do your own. I'm not a doctor, I'm not prescribing this shit, all the legal whatever fuck. But what I started to discover was that my body wanted that, and it was trying to clear my systems out. And I happen to be on a medication that really impacts my liver, and so I'm really starting to look at, like, how do I support my liver and kidney, because this medication can really throw off my natural cycles. And then you take in all the emotional stuff too, and how we move, how the body is meant to move. And so, if you're landing on this page and you're landing on my channel and you've listened this long, I and timidly, and which I tend to not be a timid person, gonna just start to share my wanderings and wonder and on this life journey, because it's such an odyssey. And um, I want to talk more about the animal, and I think that um, yeah, I want to just intuitively begin to share the wisdom and to create a community where we can remove the shame around the animal parts of ourselves. We can understand the masculine and feminine energies that are within us. We can understand the homoeroticism that's out in the system, so to speak. We can begin to understand more of our sexual energy, our creative energy. We understand our chakras and how we embody, how we move through emotions, what are our attachments. And one of the big things that I found is the absolute power of truth, and how truth reveals itself in layers. And most of this we're working through shame and worthiness. And there's just so much going on in the world that it's hard. It's not hard, it's just coming to a place of now understanding that I may not be for everybody, and that's okay. But for those people who have done an immense amount of work on themselves, that are at places where they still feel stuck, or they're not fully trusting life, or they don't understand really what embodiment means, then why don't you just come on this journey with me? Because I'm learning as we go, and if I can give you some tips and pointers, or if I can seem to have found a gift to be able to kind of see through the layers, to see parts of yourself, then I want to do that, because as they say cheesily, we're all in this together. But I know for me that it's just time to start speaking. And if you found your way to this channel and to this video, thank you so much. I'd love to hear topics, things, questions that you've got going on in your mind, where you're at in your experience, and we can have a conversation about it. So thank you for joining Wander and Wonder. I'm Elijah, but I prefer if you call me Honeycutt or Audie or whatever. I don't really care about the name so much anymore. But I appreciate you being here, and I appreciate you being in this time, in this place, with what all is happening on the earth. And I want to speak from my heart, and I want to continue to grow and nurture myself. And if I can help nurture others, then what a fulfilling life. Thanks.